Hello, everyone. This is Piupz, and for today, we're going to do a different type of session for Friday. We're going to look at theory on Friday, which is not usual, but we're gonna jump into it. We're gonna look at two bar textures, and the goal for today is to understand really well how to play in a combo level in those two textures because it's going to be very frequent textures that we're gonna encounter. And I also run some cool stuff for us. So, like for starting, when we look at like those two textures, going to be King 5-2 Rainbow and Ace 8-7 suited. For King 5-2 Rainbow, we get a single sizing for 30%, which I think seems very aligned, right? Seems very aligned with what we see in the spots, right? Either we want to go like in the region of like 2.5 until 3.5, right? And there's no meaningful EV difference when you have a board that goes through that region, right? And generally, the boards that go through that region will be like boards like King, Jack 7, and like this three high card type of textures, right? Where you want to bet like your overpair and your strong top pair. We saw some extreme scenarios where we could simplify to shove, right? The single size, which was like King, Jack 10, and so on. It was one of the first sessions that we saw there. We could simplify that, but also works the size in the region of 2.5 to 3.4. It's actually the main size in equilibrium, but we saw that we could simplify to shove if we want those type of textures as well at this text. There was no meaningful EV loss. And the other region is going to be around 30%, right? 33% is going to be a very good size in many textures and textures like this, especially, right? This is like the representative texture of that size region, right? Those two, like high card, two undercards, and so forth, right? Um, is there a problem to use 25%? No, there's no huge problem, right? But you are under investing, right? That's something to keep in mind, right? When your opponent uses like a proper ISO range and he bets 25% of these textures, in theory, in principle, he gives you, as in position player, a very good opportunity to to peel for underinvestment from the imposition perspective, right? He doesn't make you invest as much as you should, so it's good for you when you are in position if your opponent is 25 compared to 30, right? It's a small difference, but it's like 5% in average for like less money, right? It's 3E atomic lines. Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that. Oh, so it's even easier, right? So you just like 3E or 2E, basically, right? 2E is going to be 2.5-ish, 3 point something. And then 3 is going to be the roughly this region. Now, and you can use shoving some couple of textures, especially if you're using like you play a lot of tables, right, and so on. It's like those King Jack 7, King Jack 10, and so on. You can simplify to shove as well if you want. Now, like of course, we're gonna bet like range here, right? To situation that we bet range, and imposition is going to defend a range like this. So the bottom proportion of the imposition's range. Pay attention here, guys, because we're gonna have to estimate ranges later today. Pay attention here to the borders and stuff like that. Um, so borders like any vector flush show, of course, any vector flush we're gonna defend on this texture, and it's a feature of the fact that in position doesn't have much to defend, right? Vector flush shows are good hands because they are like free hands that would beat some ace highs, ace highs, queen highs, and so on later, right? So they defend, and the bottom here is just Jack 9, Queen 8. Queen 8 is just about to be indifferent. Queen 6 as well is indifferent. So those hands they get indifferent versus 30% sizing. And 7-6, yes, good point. Yeah, 7-6 is also on the indifference region here. All the queen highs basically up to queen 8 they defend. King X is top pair, no need to raise on this texture. Pocket kings, pocket ace, and so forth. If you raise anything, it's going to be ace 5 without the vector flush. All makes sense, right? You get value and you need the protection maximally with this hand, and some rare pocket sixes as well. Even not pocket sixes is what beating to raise. Now, what you would expect, guys, when you go to ace 7 8 A7 8 suited. 3E, 2E, around 3E, around 2E sizing. Yeah, I also thought that first glance through E, but it's actually if you it's wrong here. It's just running wrong. Let me just put the proper threshold. If you put the proper threshold, it's going to converge to actually 30% as well, which is funny, right? It's not something that we would expect in a texture like this, but it seems like if you compare more sizes and it's going to be the best size for 3 here on this texture still. Which is a texture that in general we use 2E, right? Um, and it's going to be some EV difference actually. If you put 2E here or the big size, going to lose a bit of EV. I'm not sure the exact reason for that. Let's take a look at what things get in different versus 1.5. You get to making different king highs, those queen nine, no backdoor flush draw, and queen highs backdoor flush draw, jack highs double backdoor flush draw. And you make pocket nines, pocket tens indifferent to raise as well. This 8x indifferent to raise. Now, let's just try to take a quick look here. What makes the difference if we put 2E here? The king X were not indifferent. Yeah, that's true. Probably they defend only vector flush draw. Yes, no indifference actually, only vector flush draw. What's really indifferent here is like those queen nine no backdoor and like the raising hands, right? The raising hands are indifferent here. So those flush draws and pocket nines, pocket tens, and so on. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Actually, if you use 2E, it's going to be no EV loss. If you use the big size, it's going to be EV loss. Like if you use 3.5, it's going to be EV loss. There's 2E, there's no EV loss, and the range is the same. Wow, what someone said, right? It's because the C-bet
No, you
almost the same
have the
frequency.
same sizing. You have the same sizing on both.
No, right? It's
No.
2.5 here.
Okay.
Oh, no, it didn't change. Oh, yeah, you're right. It
Yeah.
was not updated. Yeah. Yeah, not the same frequency. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right, to be the same frequency. I was surprised because like the investment should be more or less the same, but the frequency should be different, right, to get to the more or less the same investment. Now,
But
what's the
EV is still
difference?
the same, right?
Yeah, the EV is the same. The EV is exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to use here. Like Chewy is okay here as well. Like we don't need to enter in the difference here. Um, Slightly prefer to bet small here. Um, yeah, but no big difference. Seems like getting this queen nine to fold some frequencies okay, like this king high and so on. Now, now the imposition defending ranges looks like this, right? Queen, like all the back is easy for him to defend. Let's say, right, all the backdoor flush draw and so on. They're just all defending, and in 8x is indifferent to shove here. You would prefer to call 8x with the spade, right? You have more opportunity to just call off the turn, right? So if you slow play, you're more likely to slow play with the spade on the free kicker. Um, and raising hands will be as a bluff some 7-6, I think semi bluff and flush draws. Those low flush draws, they cannot like they do not have a comfortable position versus a turn shove or a turn bet. They tend to just raise hitting on on the flop, right? With the one over card. Like those ones they can fold on the turn versus a shove if they don't improve, right? The low ones. But these ones they get to always be in a very difficult position and they compose like a very good bluffing range, right? They fold stronger hands. They get to have pretty solid equity versus 8x and 7x and even pocket pairs. Now, my question for you is like, what will be the most likely sizes on the turn here once we bet and get called, which is the most likely outcome, right? In the ace high boards, we still check here at some frequency in ace 7-8, right? But once we bet and get called, What's the sizing? I run the sizes for the 1.5 in both scenarios. Jam, shove or check, shove or check. Yeah, so that's not accurate. And I found a way to make it cool. So I found a way to simplify the turn sizings and show to you. So now we're gonna jump into pile. Anyone have any difficulties here in seeing things in pile? Or can I proceed easily? It's very similar, right? It's just like the interface is a bit different, but not much. Okay. So now we have like King 5-2. Um, so this is like a cool feature of Pio. You can see what the hand does versus subsequent actions, right away. It's cool as well, right? Something that GTO users still don't have it. So, like for example, it's showing that 10-8 when faces are raised, like bets and faces are raised, sometimes it's going to fold, sometimes it's going to be stuff like that, right? It's going to show you the subsequent action, and this shows the subsequent action for the range, right? Unless you roll over here and you can see what the different types of hands will do after they bet and face a raise. So like the low equity hands they bet and rarely they call, right? They mostly fold, 68 fold and so forth. Um, okay, we bet. The position calls here. Now that's the cool part now. Um, where we could, I think I opened the wrong one. Let me just open the correct one. Yeah, it should be this one. Oh, 9. Yes. So now we're just opening the heat map. Okay, it's similar to Digital Wizard interface. And we're gonna look at the our position strategy. So this is like all the turns simplified to a single size strategy for this texture. So this is how the matrix looks like. So we have shoves only when it opens straight draws and flush draws on the 4, right? The 4 is the only single card that has shove as a single size best strategy here. So if you look at King 5-2, we're looking to use shove only on the 4, right? In average, this is like the turn frequencies. This is the turn frequencies in average, okay? So we check roughly 50% of the time. We bet 232 29% of the time, we bet 320, which wind up to be a bit over half stack, right? We bet a lot of half stack here. Like we have stack of 60 behind, and we bet like 320. And then shove is only 2%, and it's mainly because of the 4 of spades, right? It's unproportional, right? In average, it's just 2%, but if you go to 4, without the heart, right? To go to 4 is going to be only shove at 40%. But makes sense, right? If you look at this, makes sense, right? The 4 is really good to shove. We saw why is that, right? Why you can hypothesize by that? Because there was like queen 6, there was like plenty of backdoor flush draw, and there was 7-6 on the range, right? So if you shove on the 4, you just end the action versus all those strong draws, right? What would be hands that I would expect guys to be shoving on the 4? What will be the main hands that's shoving for value, and all the main some of the hands that shove for bluff? I can go back here for you to see the range, c-bet range. This is the c-bet range. So it's the first half box, okay? So when you look at the c-bet range here, you look at the first box, or the first rectangle, right? The first rectangle is the hands that are betting, and the down rectangle is what we do versus a raise when you bet. Pockets, open on a straight draw. Got shot blocker to flush draw, and under pairs to the king. Pocket pair, some top pair. Well, let's take a look. So now we're going to be in the four of diamonds. And yes, right? Pockets. It's going to be mostly pockets. Let me just switch to the normal visualization here. So it's going to be something like this. Okay? So we see pocket 8s, pocket 9s, pocket 10s, pocket 7s for some reason is not very good. I think it interacts too much with what we're going to try to fold, right? So all those pockets, right? Up to even pocket aces sometimes. Some of the top pair, right? Without the flush draw, but betting top pair with the flush draw is going to be a huge waste, right? And yeah, and some fives as well. You can shove some fives. Not it's not very happy shove, but it's okay to do. So, right? So, second pair plus draw. Yeah, it doesn't seem necessary to have the draw, right? 5-3, yes, 5-3 if you have them, you're gonna always shove. But for the other ones, doesn't seem necessary. And 3x, 3x is a very good shove. Yeah, open ender, right? Open ender, very good shove. Like all the like 3x shoving in a high frequency here without the pair. And there's like a couple of weird queen 8 as well, shoving queen 7 with the queen of diamonds. Queen 8, queen 7. It's a decent bet score situation, right? You bet like 75% of the pot, I think it is. This is the shoving range. It's more filtered to the shoving range. Right? So if you look here at the type of hands, it's going to be mostly under pair, right? Under pair, really heavy on the shoving range, right? 40% of the shoving range is under pair, 15% top pair. Um, Not much pocket aces shoving, and quite a lot of the nothing here, especially with the vector flush draw. I thought more hands like ace x with diamonds would shove instead of queen 8. Yeah, we don't have much ace x right in this sizing, in this pre-flop sizing. So that's part of the reason. I have something filtered here, which I have nothing. So we just have this very few aces. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, if you have to shove, you don't get like good outcomes for the ace x, right? Let's take a look at that. You get called by this range. Yeah, I mean, if you have like, I think it's like a trade-off here, right? Mm, you have all those like draws. They don't have any like any value in the checking, right? If you could bet all of them, I think you would bet most of them, but you can't, right? They are essentially better than ace x. Let's see the equities here. So they have like less equity. Ace X is like in the region where it is like really good for checking, right? It is on the equity region here, which is really good for checking, right? When we saw in the previous weeks like Ace X bluffing, it was on the turn when they had like around 28% equity, right? They were like draws in this region here on the turn there, right? When in turn barreling as in position in limpet pots, right? They were like exactly in this equity region here. Now on the isopod situation, they have like much more, right? They are very sacrificial here to be shoving, right? When you can check, play passive with them, and try to win at the showdown sometimes, or try to improve passively, right? Don't need to sacrifice. This is too much to sacrifice, I think. The ones without the flush draw, they have around 42% equity, for example, for ace eight, right? And ace jack has 43, 42. 42, 43 as well. So it's too much. I think it's just too much. They are exactly in the region that you want to check, right? It's exactly the best region for checking, the best region of equity. Now, if you go to Queen 8 and you compare to Jack 3, they are around the same equity, right? Jack 3 is a bit better. That's why it's used more often. Mm-mm-mm. Now let's return to the heat map. So here. Now there's like a couple of turns that you use a bit smaller than 320, but if you want to simplify to use only 320 is going to be fine, very nearby, right? Because but the 232 is actually more used than 320, right? 232 will be around, I think it will be 2E or 2E. I think it's 2E because I set up 2E here in the tree. So I think it's 2E through 232, right? Um, let me see. So if we let me see if it's just not 25%. Oops. Yeah, it's going to be 2E. Has to be 2E. Because I have only 25, 40. 40 is bigger. It has to be 2E. Yeah. So 2E sizing is the most used one. So if you want to simplify, actually, I say you want to simplify to the, yeah, 2E. 2E is a good sizing. There is some structure that's going to be a bit bigger, like half stack, right? There's like some turns that's going to be um, half stacking. But it seems like the 6 and the 7, you want to use 2E. Let's pick the 7 here to take a look. So it seems like you want to bet a lot of the 7x yourself, right? So if we go to the second pair, they bet at a very high frequency. Take a look at this, right? They bet very high frequency. They bet at 87% frequency. They check only 12%. So if you say that whenever you turn the second pair here and it's a low second pair, you want to barrel really aggressive, right? Because if you think about it, right, um, your opponent flatting on the flop. So if you look at his range flatting on the flop, right, they're gonna have many more like strong like 10x and 9x, right? Than strong 7x, right? Because they fold the 7x, 8x like offsuited region here, right? And we're gonna see bet of those that we have, right? Check 8, 10, 8, and so forth, right? So when we get here, we're gonna want to bet them. They are very good hands that get very effective folds, right? You get to now fold all those like queen 10 and so on, right? In the 7, you bet. Any position gets to be indifferent, queen 9, queen 10. Amazing outcome, right? You get weaker calls, right? You get pocket sixes to call you. You got all these ace highs to call you as well, right? And you don't induce raises with this size. In position not raise if you build this size correctly, right? Any questions here, guys? What you would like to iterate here in this? And when we check, I didn't do it for a single size here. I didn't prune the tree, but you see that in position is like and different around the same region, right? The same bet size region. It has some bet small. Let's take a look at his distribution of sizes when we check. So this is a distribution. Actually, there's like a couple of like very small sizes here, like bet 96, which is like 12%. There's a couple of turns, but we bet really, really small. And the turns that we get to be really, really small are the turns that pairs, right? Like on the 5, on the 2, really, really small sizes. On the king as well, lots of small, very small sizings. And on the high cards. And on the cards that hits his like new like 10x and so forth, right? So on those high cards as well. And where there's no small sizes, where it's where when open draws and stuff like that, right? Like the 6, the 7, the 8. There is more like 200 sizing, which is like 25%. So for imposition, makes sense to use a very small size here. It's a very dry texture in many turns. So for instance, the queen, right? The queen as a lot of position, we're gonna use 320. And our bet range is going to be the queens. The queens bet a lot, and the kings, basically, right? Kings and queens and pocket aces. All these pockets they have to check. We check all the sets in this instance, right? We have to check a lot. The sets always check. The two pair check at a very high frequency. Over pairs also check half of the frequency. And when we get to top pairs, we see more bets aggressively, right? King Jack is checking a lot. And second pair is also bet. The strong queens, they are betting more. Let's see if there's effect of getting weaker. Yeah, there's like weak queens in his range here. Weak queens in his range. Uh, and the bluffs are very air heavy, right? Makes sense. We don't have like draws, right? Enough to bet here. We just have to bet air here. And betting through 320 allows you to bet air to balance your betting rate for value, right? Because you can bet fold. You cannot bet fold a lot. That's why and the size is very small, right? You don't need to put many bluffs, right? But there is like space to bet fold these hands, right? You fold only 17% versus the shove, and you have very few combos of bluffs. And you have to call any five, any queen, any king that you bet, right? It's easy to get lost with bluffing too much here, right? It's just very few air with the blocker, right? And that's about it. So it seems like having the heart helps, yes. Having the heart seems to be okay, heuristic. And the low ones, like you picked low ones with the heart, I think it's fine. If you use this heuristic, it's going to be fine. Like the opponent would only be able to punish you if he knows that you pick only hearts, right? If you know he knows that you construct the range this way, he can make you can cause him to not be indifferent with some hands, right? In theory, like if he knew that you announce your range to be only heart bluffs, he would want to with his bluff catchers or not have a heart, right? And you probably push him to not be indifferent with some combos because Equilibrium actually picks some other ones without the heart here because of that, probably because otherwise it's going to be asymmetric for the imposition player. It's going to create some asymmetric not indifference for the imposition player. Yeah, but I would proceed this way mostly. Like if the opens, you pick more like heart combinations. It's going to be fine. Oh, 9-5 is a pair, yeah. But there is some 9-7 without. No, there's no without one. There's like 8-7 here without the 8-7 double heart. He wants to bet a lot, but yeah. Why heart? Heart you don't interact as much with the always fold from the turn, right? Because he calls backdoor flush draws on the flop. On the queen, for example, he has plenty more like 9-6 suited with the backdoor flush draw. So if you have a heart, you don't interact with that, right? Does that make sense to you? You get slightly more folds, right? Yeah. So on the queen, we want to bet a lot of the queens. Mm-mm. And it seems to be necessary that you have. Yeah, actually, it doesn't seem to be necessary. Just want to bet. Yeah, I figured out it's you, Mateus. I figured it out by this point. Thanks for letting me know. Uh, yeah. Hey, the surprising feature here is betting Queen X for me. Betting Queen X. I would check all the Queen X before seeing this, but it seems like it's enough. Opponents should have enough third pair, right? Third pair is very heavy in his range, like pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines, pocket tens, and 5x, right? and second pair. There's going to be, yeah, I think betting second pair, here's a feature of the calling range from the flop, right? First of all, your opponent's never shoving pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights, which might not be so realistic in real play versus many opponents, right? I think versus some, yes. But some opponents might not even wind up with pocket sixes, pocket sevens here. But if they do, I think nowadays most people wind up having them on higher stakes, right? But I think they're gonna raise on the flop quite more frequently than this, right? This, for instance, would change our incentives on the turn for sure, right? We can investigate that. Will take some time to do that, but we can do investigate that. Let's do this on the back while we do other stuff. Let me just open another instance here. Unload the tree. Let me just see if I be without RAM to do that, but I don't think so. No, it's 53 is going to be fine because this will take some RAM. Um, we're gonna have to do since the beginning here and simplify. So we're gonna have to run this one. We're gonna have to do the node locking here on the flop. So we're gonna have to do the node locking to raise more. So we're gonna have to node lock, set strategy, execute. Execute. It will take some time here. We can come back. Oh yeah, there we go. So now what we're gonna look to do here is pick those, select. We're gonna have to we're gonna pick those under pairs and we're gonna make them raise more. Clear selection. We want to pick this, this, and this. And we want to make them shove. Let's say we want to make them shove here on the flop. Yeah, something like this we're gonna do. But we're gonna lock only those. Can we lock only those combos? Yes, we can. Okay. Let's do a bit more extreme. Let's make those pocket eights as well. They raise more. Pocket eights, pocket nines. Why pocket eights don't want to raise here? Pocket eights. Why I cannot select pocket eights? For some reason, I cannot change pocket eights. Huh. That's curious. Oh, because it's already locked. Yeah. There, there we go. So we should lock all of this. And we should save and close. And we should lock some fives as well, I think, to raise, right? Let's make some fives raise more as well. So let's pick here in range. Let's pick those second pairs. Okay. Let's make them raise a bit more. Like this. We're gonna lock them. Save and close. Now we're gonna run. It will take way more time than Jicho Wizard though. We're gonna be old style. I was late. Why are we in Pile? Because we're looking at turn simplified strategies here. So it would take some time now to converge. So we come back to here. No, 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 not this one. We come back here. Yeah, this one. Now, now, so the sizing here like 320. And now if we go to the jack, would you expect to be the same, guys? We're gonna bet a lot of jacks then. If we go to the jack, the same. Yeah. And I think that's the reason why we can bet slightly bigger at the jack and the queen and so on, right? Because we bet the jack and the queen. And they beat all the pocket pairs, right? When we go to the 7x, we bet small because we don't beat pocket eights, pocket nines, which is in his range, right? So if we go back to the 7 here, we bet the 7s at a high frequency at 232 size, which is 2E, right? But we don't beat those hands, right? They all are not indifferent. So we are going for tiny equity denial, right? When the 7 here. And when we go to the queen, it's like different, right? We are aiming at a different subset of the range, right? We go to the queen, we are aiming at those pocket pairs, right? Now we beat them, so we are fine to just fold them out.
But
We beat
wasn't
the
it
five. So.
the opposite that we had the bigger sizing on the lower card, like 7, and smaller
No, no,
size on
no.
the
We
queen?
had the smaller size here. We had the smaller size on the 7, 232, right? So around two, I think it's 2E. And then on the queen, we had half a stack. Half a
I
stack.
thought when you showed this matrix with all the cards, all the turns, that when the higher card was coming and paired card was coming, then we used smaller sizing.
No, it was the opposite. I can show you again. It was the opposite. So as you can see, right, 232 here in the lower cards and the higher cards all are above the 8 here. They are like all 392. And I think the reason of the increase in the
Okay.
size is because as we go progressively to the 8 and the 9 and 10, we beat more of the pocket pairs that flat the flop, right? We could see probably different effects on the ones that we are running here, the node lock. We could see different effects, I think, probably. But the effect is like when we turn a second pair that we want to bet, but we don't beat the pocket pairs, we want to size it down a bit, right? We want to size down here in this opportunity because we want to bet the 7s, and the 7s, they all lose to 8s, 9s, 10s, right? So we get to fold all those 2-over cards to them, which is amazing, right? But um, it seems like we don't want to go as big as 320 here. It's a small
Okay.
difference, right?
I have it noted. It was for floating from in position, the opposite
Ah, okay,
sizing
yes.
scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. So for imposition, it's not so appealing to go for all the equity denial, right? They can check back easily. So it's different, right? When you check to imposition, yes, there was using like more 232 here, but it's not the same. It's like using like the same sizing. There's no 300 allowed here for my solution. So they are using the same region of sizes, and 7x are betting in the same way, basically almost pure here. So if you go to the 7x, it's a pure betting 7x. All the 7x then position turns when it checked is all betting, and if out of position shoves, it's always bet calling, of course, right? It's always bet calling. Let me see how the solution converts here. So we have, oh, it's enough already. Stop. But now we have to do different stuff. We have to wait a bit more because I have to simplify the size on the turn again. Um, so we have it correct now. It's shoving more of this pocket pairs. Um, we get indifferent to call ace jack suited. I'll just lock the pocket pair, so it's bluffing a bit more, I guess. You know, it's picking some queen two to raise some jack 10 here as well. No, it's not bluffing more. Why didn't I adjust? Did I lock the whole range? Yeah, I locked the whole range, I guess. I shouldn't do that. But it's fine. Let's do this way. Now, I have to save this. Let's call this awk. I have to save the solution. We're gonna let it simplify in the size on the side here. So I'm going to close the solution now that it's saved to not save some space. I'm just going to quickly do here on the side. Just 1 second, guys. 30% call. Now we're gonna go to the turn. And we're gonna 30 all the turns. Start. Yep, so it's doing here on the side. So in the meanwhile, we're gonna look at some hands and now we're gonna try to estimate ranges. Okay, so these are hands that the solver played against itself. So it's going to look a bit different because it cannot generate the hand history in a spin and go format. But like for example, it's going to raise pre-flop and stuff like that. But you consider the flop here, right? The flop situation is the same, right? 750 behind and 500 on the pot, right? Now we're going to try to estimate some hands together. So let's look at the action. So out of position bets, in position calls, out of position checks, in position bets 200, out of position calls, out of position checks, in position shoves, and out of position calls. Now I'm gonna need from you guys some hands that you think are in position range here, shoving first. What are some hands that you would expect here for the in position to have here as a bluff and as value? Name some hands for me. I want you to name some hands. 7-6, 10-7. Come on, guys. Chat. Hands. What's the weakest value bet for the in position player here? Five three, 5-4, pocket tens. And for the out of position player, what are some calling hands here from the out of position player? The bottom of the calling range. What would hands would expect to be in the bottom of the calling range here? Queen X. Okay, let's take a look at the hands. Queen 8 called as out of position here. Queen 8 was a call. And in position shoves Jack 5. So the line C bet call, check call, check call. Right? Let's take a look at that line on the solver. So Jack X also call as out of position? I don't think so. I think you have enough Queen X to don't want to call Jack X. Jack X might interact with some bluffs. Let's see. Let's see. This one. Not this one. This one. So the line was C bet call. The turn was the king. It was one of the few turns that our English could use the very small sizing, right? It didn't use this time, but it could. So all the pure checking hands here are basically Queen X, right? Queen X is just pure checking, and Ace X can value bet here. Ace X have enough equity to value bet. So 51 is different than 45, right? So 51 is enough to value bet here. So you can value bet Ace X here as out of position. Let's see if it's a bet call. Value bet, raise. Yeah, it's a bet call. You have equity, right? Once you bet, you have equity to call. Even versus 2x. So yeah, so 232 spot, you bet lots of the pockets, and some of the bluffs are it's a high bet frequency situation, so you bet like plenty of the 8-6, 9-7, and so on, which you can fold, right? You cannot fold queen like ace x, but you can fold those air. Not folding a lot, 30%, 28%, right? Now when we check, in position can get to bet very small, but actually it's betting mostly 200. So its range that bets 200, it's going to be around the bluffs, all the like the the under pairs are very high frequency up to pocket jacks. Pocket jacks check pure here. Pocket jacks, pocket queens just pure, but up to pocket tens very high frequency bet. All the second pairs they bet, and all the third pair also is betting, right? And plenty of nothing. Even queen 10, queen jacks is betting a bit mergy here, right? And they get called by Jack X. Masiak was right, but in the turn. On the turn, there's calls from Jack 7 and Jack 8. They make it different with the sizing, Jack 8, Jack 7. And lots of king highs, so queen highs, right? And the range is really capped. Take a look at this. The range that defends versus the bet, I don't know, sorry, I was filtering for nothing. I was stupid. It's still, right? It's like really, really heavy in nothing, right? Nothing is 67% of the range from the other position. And plenty of the nothing that will defend is going to be queen highs, right? I can, there's a way to create another category here, which is queen high. Let me just see if I can do that. Customize. There is a way to add a category here. I'm not sure how to do that now. Well, I'm going to add queen highs for later things that we can do here. I think it's interesting to look at queen highs from the spin and go perspective. I don't think they have as default setup because in cash games and MTTs, most of the situations queen highs are in the same bucket as jack highs, let's say. But here it's different, right? But among the nothing is going to be lots of queen highs. Let me see if I put queen. Oh, I can filter for queen here. Nice. Queen high. Queen of hearts. I can filter. I can filter for the queen. Nice. So you can see from the queens, you only fold 15% versus the size. Only the small ones. And the most heavy ones that we have are the up ones. And we have pocket queens here. I didn't want to have pocket queens, so I go select nothing here. So, and then I put the queens. Like this should work? No. It selects pocket queens for some reason. So I'm not sure how to do the filtering now, but yeah. But you can notice a lot of the queens are calling. And most of the over pairs they are just raising. And we're just having a range which is like very, very strong hands, like pocket queens and pocket aces and trips and full houses, the very few ones that check they always call, right? And queen eyes. So, and then we go to the 2 on the river. And there's a couple of donking here, pocket aces, pocket kings. And you check, and then all the fives jam, right? And so the weakest value bet is going to be, let me see if ace 3. If ace 3 is anything on the range, it's shoving for value. Because if you pick the calling range, it's going to have enough of the It's 25% underpair, 13% full house, but it's like nothing. It's like most of the remaining amount of the calling range. So if you have ace X here, if you have ace X on the river, on the river as in position, you can shove for value versus this range. Because it caps himself a lot here on the turn versus the bet, raises the remaining over pairs here up to pocket jacks. The calling range is very queen X heavy. When I see this range, I think we should donk when queen on the river. That's also a good point, right? Let's take a look at the distribution of rivers. We have donking even on the two, right? The two, the pocket kings, pocket aces, they donk. And in position is shoving even some queens, right? Because it basically fold out some hands that are equal, right? And they block pocket queens, which is like the most frequent trap here. And they block king queen is also is a trap here. So shoving queens is like okay here as well as in position player, right? It's not for value, but it's like you fold hands that you share the equity and you block the value. So it's a good bet here for reaching the showdown more often. Let's say you can, or as equal, right? You can reach the showdown here very effectively. Shoving queen jack here is a very capped range situation. But we don't not going to be able to execute this in real time, acknowledge all of this, right? You can see it's like mostly checking, it's fine. But the bluffs, we cannot bluff all the bluffs, as you can see, right? You cannot bluff all the bluffs. Even if you shove ace four here, the very few non-existent combinations that you have. You cannot shove all the bluffs. So I think part of the reason that's shoving pocket aces, pocket kings, is because there is no way to the imposition to bet enough that it's better for them to check, right? Because the two limits are really like the value bets opportunity for like even if you donk pocket aces and pocket kings and some king queen in position, there's no way to spend this bet frequency, right? There's no way to spend the bet frequency for value for the imposition player on this river. Like it has to shove some queen jack now, right? So those hands they get in position to call some jack X here if you donk them. You're gonna donk them in some 4-3. 6-3, 4-3. I think probably you donk because you have those hands in your range, right? Let's see the EV comparison. Yeah, it's better to bet them, right? As you can see, bet in general for 4-3 performs better than checking for most of the combos. Makes sense, right? So actually the donking is going to be because you have 4-3, right? You have 4-3 and the 2 allows you to donk. So you pick some of the value from your range that makes sense to donk and 4-3 to remove it from your range. So it's like around 4-3. If we didn't have 4-3, I don't think we're gonna donk a lot. Now, do we donk on the queen? Do we donk on the tree? On the queen, sorry. Mm, look at our range and look at the imposition range. So if we look at the impositions range, this is his composition. He's going to have quite a bit of queens. No, queens no. Let me show the imposition range. This is the imposition range. So his range is like some queens, right? He has some queen, jack, queen, 10 about the turn, but air, he has a lot of air, some second pair, some under pair, and some full houses. Do we donk a lot of the queens? If we donk the queens, what we would expect to get calls from weaker hands? So we're gonna share with some queens the equity, right? He doesn't have ace highs. He does have second pairs and pockets, right? Those will be the region that we get calls from. But do we have bluffs to make him indifferent? Because if we expect to get value from this region, we have to have bluffs, enough bluffs to make him indifferent, right? Because if we don't make him indifferent, so if we don't have bluffs with our queens, we would not bet the queens, right? Doesn't make sense to bet the queens, right? So do we have bluffs to make him indifferent? Well, let's jump back to the out of position range here. We just have some few Jack 10, Jack 8, Jack 7, and 4-3, right? We have those hands. So we have some, but not many. Is that enough? I don't know. Let's see. Yes, it's more than enough. We bet the whole range now. We just shoved the whole range on the queen. So the queen's very asymmetric. And the bluffs are really those hands, like 4-3, Jack 8, and so on, right? It's like a small bet. We have to remember that's a small bet, right? It's a 1/3 bet, so you don't need many bluffs. We still have 20% of the Jack highs. It's more than enough for this bet size. So my first estimation was a bit wrong because I didn't think about the bet size, right? The bet size is really small, so the Jack highs and 4-3 is enough to compose the betting range. Now, if one doesn't defend the Jack highs on the turn, it would not be allowed to donk probably on this river, right? So we can run a sub tree here and take a look at that. So tree, so create sub tree configuration. So we just copy to the clipboard. We generate another pile solver instance, right? Maybe smaller size. Yeah, maybe. Let's reduce the amount of jacks that they can have. Let's just let Jack 10 on the river. Let's see what happens. So we just paste here in the out of position range. We're gonna let only Jack 10 here. Okay, so we're gonna let only Jack 10. Jack 8, Jack 7 is going to always fold. Jack 10, Jack 7, Jack 6 is going to always fold. And 4-3 is going to always barrel or raise the turn. So we're not going to have 4-3 and 6-3 on the range. Okay. I think that's fair, right? I think that's fair. So we're going to build the tree. We're going to go. And let's see. Yeah, now we check a lot. We still bet, but we check a lot. A lot more, right? Compared to the other one. Let's just open full screen. Now we just are not allowed to bet the queens, right? We don't have enough. So we bet all the Jack 9 and Jack 10 that we have, but that's not enough to bet all the queens, right? So we really want to bet on the queen, but if we cannot generate indifference enough, we're going to bet just enough to generate indifference, right? Given the low equity combos that we have. So we can generate indifference in the pockets in the 5x region this way. But if we bet all the queens now, we're going to have a problem, right? Because we don't have the air. And we have to remember that in equilibrium, you're always playing with the assumption that your opponent knows your range, right? So if he knows your range and he sees that you don't have enough Jack X to bet, it doesn't make any sense for him to call if you don't call the queens, right? Because it's going to be a range that doesn't create indifference in his range, right? It will never be indifferent with those hands, right? If you don't have the Jack X, right? So if a very passive opponent, you bet the turn and he donks on the queen, well, I have a thing to use that you're gonna fold all your pure bluff catchers, right? He doesn't make you indifferent, right? He would never make you indifferent on the queen. And we should donk a lot on the queen. So I'm gonna close this one. And we can come back here. No, not this one. Oh, I had the ace X prepared and we didn't even touch it. So it's fine, but it's fine. We have been learning a lot on the session. Okay, so yeah, so let's take a look at the distribution of donks here. Would you expect, guys, another high frequency donk card here on the auto position? We're going to look at all the cards and how much he donks. But would you expect like more donks in other cards? We saw that on the 2, we can donk pocket aces, pocket kings, and 4-3, right? 4-3 is no sacrificial hand, so we want to really remove it from the range if we can as out of position, right? So we develop the donking range around it on the 2. Another card that you think is going to have donks on the jack? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right. The jacks follow similar logic from the queen, but we have much less on the range. But the queen is much more sacrificial than the jack, right? So we really don't want to bet the queen. Otherwise, our opponent will have to overfold so much, right? If we bet the queen, our opponent will have to overfold so much to compensate for that, then maybe jack X don't get value, right? Maybe Jack X don't get value because opponent will have to overthrow it because we're sacrificing so much. But we have 4-3. We still have 4-3. We're gonna remove 4-3 on the Jack for sure, right? For sure, we're gonna remove 4-3. 4-3 and 6-3 is going to be removed from the range. Let's see. Let's see all the cards. So this is the runout heat map. We're gonna look at the strategies. Ta-da! So there is donking any cards, and it's all removing basically the 4-3, right? They're all to remove the 4-3 from the range, I think. Because we carry 4-3 because the bet was so good for odds. We don't want to raise because there was no much full equity, right? For 4-3. We wanna it's indifferent. So we carry some of the 4-3 in our calling range. But the queen's really special here, right? And it makes the difference that you acknowledge that you recognize that in game, right? Because if you don't recognize that in game, you're gonna lose the EV opportunity, right? Because when you have to donk the whole range, basically, there is going to be high regret in not doing so, right? But in other cards, yes, if you don't carry 4-3 and 6-3 in your range here in practice, there is going to be no donking probably, or very few donking in the other cards. The Jack is a bit higher than the others, but not much, right? So if you look at the Jack, yeah, the Jack's going to bet here at some frequency, and you use 4-3 and 6-3 basically, and some Queen highs. But Queen highs we would expect to get called by Queen highs probably, yes. Right? But Queen 10 beats there are Queen highs that bets, right? Um I think as humans don't like to see bet and check all those pure no showdown bluffs. Yes, exactly right. They either barrel or they gonna which makes the barrel range a bit more draw heavy, right? Because we saw that on the two, we barrel many other stuff that is not draw, right? So if they have 4-3 and they always want to barrel, the range becomes a bit more draw heavy, which gives incentive for the imposition player to raise a bit more aggressive, right? Because as we saw in many other situations, the more draw heavy compared to equilibrium the bluffing range from the other player is, the more we want to raise, right? Because it's effective equity that we deny, right? Equity that can beat even our strongest hands, right? Exactly, right? Like it's like that's why, like, for example, there's like different types of near equilibrium strategies, right? You can make different types of strategies which are trying to emulate equilibrium, the true equilibrium, right? But the true equilibrium, like if you could emulate the true equilibrium with all the sizes possible and it's like free to use any sizes, it's going to capture way more money, right? It's going to beat the other near equilibrium strategies by a lot of money, right? And why is that? Because it has the freedom to choose strategies like this, right? It doesn't necessarily feel obligated to pick actions before because it doesn't have optionality later. No, it has like true optionality. It can consider every option, right? It can consider every option and it like calls for a tree and can dunk on the river profitably for a tree in many rivers, right? It can develop those like 10% dunk frequencies on the river. For humans, that might not be worth it. It might not be worth your time, right? Of course, if you could do a strategy like this without wasting much computation from your brain because you already saw a lot of those situations, it's easy for you to execute. Amazing, right? It's going to be a strategy that's going to capture more money than the other one, but it's like tiny money, right? Because for a matter of fact, the most money that we get are from recreational players, right? But it's cool, right? You like you can check here 5-3 and call versus small bet, right? It's fine. And if you acknowledge that you have this range descending in your range, you can have to remove them on the river, right? And you make indifferent him with like yeah, queen highs. So yeah, so like part of the EV of calling for 3 on the turn, that's why it's indifferent. It's because you get to donk most rivers, right? It's a feature here, right? And not a position is that true in general, okay? Like there's like many situations in heads up limpet pots as well. That's also true, right? You cannot. probe all your draws, right? Sometimes you cannot like check raise and bet all your draws, but if you check and you get odds to Piupz versus the size, in general you don't still want to raise very aggressive, right? You can call and donk some rivers. Not all the rivers as the year, it's like extreme case, but you can donk many rivers for a small size and remove part of the weak draws that you call the turn with. And what value we always donk? Well, the rivered value in general, that's true, right? The river value, and in these low SPR situations, you're gonna donk also some of the bolts, right? Some of the bolts that you call the turn. Let's return to some more hands. New hand from the solver, from the bot. We got to be on the flop, out of position, bets 150, in position calls. Queen comes on the turn, out of position checks, right? Out of position should check here more than betting, right? We saw that the average frequency for checking is like 50 point, a bit more than, than 50. So it's checking more frequently than betting. And now we face the very small sizing, like 12%. We have a lot of odds here to Piupz as out of position, right? It's very difficult to defend as out of position player versus the size, right? You have to rate some, you have to Piupz hands like Jack High, insane Jack High. We're gonna see it later. So out of position Piupz the small sizing. 9 comes on the river, it checks, and in position shoves for value. Out of position folds. What hands do you think out of position folds here on the river? What will be some of the folding hands that you think out of position have on this river? Pockets, Jack Highs, Jack X, 10X, Ace X. Yeah, probably some 5X as well, right? 5X as well. 5X, 2X, pocket sixes, pocket sevens, yes. Do we always call every nine that we have here? We should have some Jack nine probably, right? Jack nine, some, yeah, we should have some nines. Very few though. I think we do. Do we have do we have donks here on this river? Do you think like given what we saw, there's going to be donks on this river? No. Yeah, the SPR is much higher now, right? Because the bet before was like 200 and called 200. So the pot size on the river was like much higher and the SPR much lower. Now we have like more than half of the pot behind. So it's different situation, right? We cannot donk as stingy anymore. Maybe, but 4-3 is still on the range, right? Probably at some frequency. Now what's like some of the weakest in position shoves here? Weakest in position shove. Is there some hands that we would prefer to call here to bluff? There's some preference region here for the imposition in bluffs. Do you think, guys? Like some bluffs that we never give up, or some bluffs that we would prefer to have? We have to remember that out of position was betting a lot on the queen, right? His queens himself. That's a fact that we have to remember. Right, so let's see. So out of position had Jack 8 and in position has 6-3. Let's take a look. So now we're looking at the Queen of Hearts turn. So yes, lots of queens betting. 4-3 is always betting now. Why is that? Why 4-3 before was not always betting and now it's always betting? Now draws are more important, right, on this turn because in position gets more robust hands to defend, right? He doesn't defend as much no-mate hands anymore. So if you barrel here any size, basically in position is going to have like many queens now and fives and pocket pairs, right? So we need more equity versus those hands. So 4-3 is going to be better than 9-7 to bet now, right? So it's like equity when called for the bluff here. So the very few draws that we have, we prioritize them, right? So for example, 10-9 is always betting as well, right? There's no showdown and there's like draw equity. So yeah, you would prefer that. Jack 10 is like showdown, right? There's showdown for Jack 10. Okay, so we just check and in position use the small sizing. This is the range that he's considering using the small sizing. We get indifferent with 10-6. Yes, we get indifferent with 10-6. Crazy. Jack highs call at a high frequency, Jack 8, Jack 7, right? And Queen X raise if we have them. So call. 9 comes on the river. No donking. Let's see the donking now. Yeah, there's just donking on the queen, on the king, but very few. And I think those donk will come from hands like 10-6 that we call on the turn, right? Then we want to remove them in some very rare rivers. And on the 4 as well. Now we check, and the weakest value bet is actually quite strong. There's no pocket tens shoving on the river. Pocket tens not shoving on the river. So Queen X is the weakest value bet here. Queen X is actually the weakest value bet. Queen 8. So it seems like there is not enough value. So if we look at the calling range, it contains 15% of pocket tens, pocket queens, and if you filter for this portion of the range, yeah, it's going to be like if you look at the stronger range, like it's going 6% top pair, 15% two pair, 20% sets, and 5% straight. So that make up with a lot of the range, right? It's like a lot of very strong hands already on the range. Jacks is not on the range. Yeah, it's not on the range. It's raising the turn. No, why is Jack not on the range? Oh, for the imposition, right? It's not betting on the turn for the imposition player. It doesn't make sense, right? Like the threshold to bet is like either pocket pairs that need some protection and beat other pocket pairs, like pocket nines, pocket tens, but pocket jacks is the one of the most effective ones to check here among the pockets. It needs the least protection, although it beats the other pocket pairs, it needs the least protection. And if you think about it as well, out of position checking range is going to be very Jack X heavy, right? Jack X heavy like range, so we interact a lot with the folding range and the range that we would beat for a full value bet on the river, right? If we improve on the Jack, or you can bet versus them on the river as well, but you have reverse implies and stuff like that. So Jack X, like in general, when you interact with the check range from the other player, you want to bet the hands that don't need protection, right? So Jack X is the example of that hand. Yeah, so weakest value bet Queen X because out of position is full of traps now. So the calling range from the out of position here on the turn is very trap heavy, right? All the sets they just always call, the two pair always call. Other hands they raise, right? Their hands they need protection at some extent or want to end the action, they just raise. And yeah, so our range is very heavy in a region that doesn't make sense to shove pocket tens. Let's see the EV difference. EV compare, bet to check. Yeah, so checking wins 98 chips, which is equivalent to 9 chips on the in the scenario that we have. So you win one big blind more by checking pocket tens here and pocket jacks. One big blind difference, EV difference, around one big blind EV difference. Nice. Okay, now we can look at the simplified tree. Just very quickly. We can go here, no lock. This one. Now we have the multi-size turn, like what I'm looking now. Now we're looking at the size turn where he's fast played his pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines, okay? He fast played those hands on the flop. Now we're looking at the distribution of turn sizes, how it changes with a simplified turn sizing scheme. So now we check a bit less, but the sizes are about the same. Shoving on the floor, but we bet way less on the queen. Take a look at this, right? The great difference that we bet much more and much bigger actually on the 7 on the 8. Now we are betting big on the 7 on the 8 and so forth, right? So we're betting bigger and we are betting way less on the high cards. Why is that, guys? Why do we bet way less on the queen now? So let me just open the other one so that we can compare. Let me just open the original one. No, it's not this one. Fuck. This one here. So this is the original one. So now we are opening the heat map. Strategy. Now we're just opening this one and this one. Let's make about the same size. So the only difference in the ranges here is that our opponent fast played the pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines region versus small bets on the flop, which I think is common for many of our opponents that you're gonna face in flashes. Right? They will fast play either pre-flop or on the flop those hands, so you're gonna be versus opponent more on the left side. And take a look, it's a huge like some factors, right? The average frequency actually increased of bet, right? The average frequency increase of bet, but it's not proportional to all the turns, right? It's not like all the turns increase a bit proportionally. No. Some turns now they are much better than before, and some turns now are much weaker than before to bet, right? So if you look at the right side, it's like the ones without the pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights on the betting range of the flop. See this. So without sixes and nines on turn start range. So we see increased bet frequency, right? But it's not proportionally among different, right? So we see like high card turns become much stronger for in-position player. Come on, guys. Only Max give hypothesis here. What's your hypothesis? What's your hypothesis here? Why now we check so much, like in the queen, for example? Before on the queen, we were betting 38%, 39%. Now we're betting like 20% only. So it's like half of the frequency. So we're putting half of the amount of the money that we were putting before on the queen now. Why is that? Why is that the case? Well, it's exactly what Max said. Right now, in position has less hands that Queen X would love to bet against. Right? And the thing is like if you think about it, the properties of the hands that on the equilibrium here, right? On the left, on the equilibrium simplified, that we want to bet Queen X against is the property that we can get value now. We can make them indifferent now, but generally on the river we can't, right? That's why Queen X I think was betting a lot, right? Because actually pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines are very good to extract value now, but it's the hands that you don't get stacks on the river in general, right? If you check. So that's why Queen X was urgent to bet. Now on the right scenario where they don't have those hands, like Queen X don't like to bet as much as anymore, right? So let's see the threshold for betting here on the queen now. Let's see here. Where is it? Oh, this one. I'm lost here. It's too many tabs here. So now Queen X bet way less, right? And our betting range is like bets way less, but still no, it's not the correct one, is it? Yes, it is. Let's still bet a lot, but no. Sorry, it's not betting a lot. So second pair here, right? So Queen X is betting only about 26% now. Very few Queen X betting. Most of the betting range now is pocket aces. Now pocket aces become much better to bet now, right? Pocket aces like dominates all the queens that he has more queens in his range. So he has like second pair now 18%. And before he had around 17. It's about the same. But he has less indifference. His range is more polar, right? His range is more polar. Let me just close this one. His range is more polar now. He has 35% air. He has less hands that we get value from the Queen X, right? And at the same time, there's like way more equity denial to be had on the seven, right? And now we want to bet bigger on the seven, right? No, we don't want to bet bigger, but there's like way more equity denial to be had, right? Like pocket eights is a much clearer value bet for us now as our position, right? All the 7x are much clearer like value bets, right? We bet and we get so much more equity denial as well because he's going to have a higher density of Jack 10, Queen 8, right? And air hands. So we're gonna benefit to inflate our bet frequency here. As you can see now, we bet roughly 70% here on the seven, right? The seven becomes a premium card for us, right? So it's unproportional, right? So equilibrium ranges, which flat pocket sixes, pocket nines, high frequency, makes out of position not have many situations where we can unproportionally inflate his bet frequency, right? To win, to capture a lot of EV, right? Now we can inflate a lot on the seven. We can inflate a lot on the nine, right? We can inflate more on the nine. We can inflate way more on the six as well, right? We can bet way more on the six. We can likely bet more on the four as well. On the four, we get to bet way more as well, and so forth. So let me just take a screenshot of this screen here, right? With the, no, these are the same. So this is close. this is the one that I'm looking for. So this is the pair one. Oh, let me just see. Let me just screenshot this and we gonna post it here. Okay, so King 5-3 rainbow turn bet frequency heat map change if opponent is equilibrium left or overly raise pocket sixes, pocket nines, right? And we gonna copy this one. Yes. Let's see one more hand from the bot. Let's see a couple of hands from the bot now. Let's see. Just go quickly. So bot bets. This is something weird. Bot bets here on the flop, checks on the two, calls on the two, checks, shove, calls, pocket queens, and king four. Let me know if you want to pause. Bets on the flop, call, check, checks on the ace, bet small on the ace, calls, check on the four, shoves on the ace, calls, pocket queens again. So pocket queens is a very heavy range in this range, right? That bets the flop, check on the turn. So jack seven shoves here, in position. Bet small. It's like this very small sizing is very used on jack, queen, and ace and 10, right? Calls out position, shoves and calls, king 5 and king 3. That's on the flop, checks on the 2, call, 3, fold, queen 8 and 10-6. Bets bigger, like smaller on the 9. Out of position calls, check, shove, folds, ace 8, queen 3. So queen 3 being a bluff here is quite a bit surprising, right? But it makes some sense. Interacts with the pocket queens, which is always a call from the out of position, probably, right? Interacts with queen 10, which is always on the out of position range as well. So, and it doesn't have many showdown value, right? The weakest hand here from the out of position will be queen 8, probably. So it loses to that. It's interesting to see this one. So 9 jack. Let's see. So this one.
Yeah, but I think you can fold out many pocket pairs here, right?
Yes, that as well.
Not only queen highs.
So it was the 9. Strategy plus reaction. So it checks. So it bets small. So yes, calling range from the other position player is very queen X. Weakest queen X is queen 8. Basically, there is some actually there's some queen 6, queen 7, and all of them queen 3 bits. And there's like 16% ace highs and quite a lot of low pairs, some under pairs as well. Pocket queen is very heavy on the range still. Call, and then the river was the jack. So there's like quite a lot of donking here from the out of position player in this instance, like queen 10, very heavy on the range. So he gets 7% straight, 8% straights on this river. So it seems like we can remove some of the hands. And ace X, they check to check fold quite a bit, right? Ace Jack always calls, ace Queen always calls, basically. Like when we see the bottom box here is what we do versus a bet when we check, okay? So just like this matrix, you can visualize the strategy that you use and the action that you have versus subsequent action. So 6-5 is in different hand once we check, 5-3 is in different hand, 10-2 is in different hand, pocket sevens, pocket eights is in different hand, right? So we check, and the weakest value bet from the imposition player is just King X, right? Jack X shoving. Jack X is indifferent. Jack X is indifferent hand here to shove on the imposition player. And Queen 5 Queen 6 is always shoving, queen 3, so queen X is always shoving here, right? So even queen 8's not shoving. Queen 8 we still shop enough, right? So it's like a big difference probably between queen 8 and queen 3, right? So if we compare the EV of shoving and checking, for queen 8 is a blunder to shove. Queen 8 is a blunder to shove, and queen 3 is a blunder to check. This is amazing, right? Like queen 3 is a blunder to check, and queen 8 is a blunder to shove. There's a pretty huge difference between them, right? Because queen 8 wins like some okay frequency at the showdown, yeah, right? And queen 3 doesn't. Queen 3 is amazing bluff at the other point, right? Because you either lose when you check, and you have amazing properties of bluffing, right? The blockers are really good. I don't know how they calculate the blockers here, but it's basically the same for all the queen X here, right? It's basically the same. Actually, like queen 8 has better blockers, right? But I don't know how they calculate the blockers. I don't want to enter this because I'm not sure how they calculate. Queen 8's also blocking 8. Queen 8's also block pocket 8s. Yeah, it's a very good point, Mateus. Yes, yes. It's true. Which is a great bonus as well, right? We don't want to like the interaction here for queen 8 is very bad, right? You interact with pocket 8s and you have also equity when you check. Let's look at the equity of queen 8 here. I have something selected here, which I don't know what it is. I don't have all the hands. What do I have selected? Or can I clear everything? Something's wrong. Because I cannot visualize queen 3 equity. Let me just open the Range Explorer. Maybe I can. Clear, clear, clear. No, no, that doesn't work as well. Oh, no, yeah. So Queen 8 has 13% win at the showdown or shop at the showdown, right? So it has 13% equity. So it wins 13% of this pot, right? It's like 1992 pot. So it's like quite big, right? So 13% of that it wins, right? And Queen 3 wins 1%. So it's like a big difference, right? In between Queen 8 and Queen 3. They are they are like Queen 8's actually good as well in terms of blockers, right? But queen 3 is like no showdown, so you want to pick queen 3 before queen 8. Yeah. So you have ace 8, one of the range that hands that you can actually consider calling sometimes, right? We saw that here. So, right here, queen 8, ace 8 can consider calling sometimes, but only ace 8 with the hearts. So ace 8 with the hearts not even indifferent. Ace 8 with the heart always want to call. But ace 8 with the backdoor flush draw never wants to call, interacts with the bluffs, right? 10-8 here. 10-8, 8-7, right? And yeah. And that's even accounting for the fact that your opponent's going to shove more 8-7 of heart than 8-7 of diamonds, right? If they shove this evenly, like 8-7 is even better calling score. So let's see the EV here. So 5.6 EV of ace 8 without the heart. So if you want to call ace highs here, it's going to happen. In general, that's a good heuristic here for this type of situations, okay? So whenever you have ace high to be a bluff catcher on the river and you check on the turn, face double bets here in general, right? When you want to check call ace highs, you want to check call the ace high that don't interact with the flop calling range here, right? The weak flop calling range, right? Have you already been applying these heuristics, guys, when you call ace highs on this type of lines? That you want to have the ace X that don't interact with the flop calling region, weak region? Yes. That's generally valid for king highs as well in some ace high boards, let's say, right? King highs is also valid heuristic for queen highs as well. Like the weakest portion of your bluff catching range, they generally is not going to be indifferent. They're gonna want to prioritize some of that at some degree, right? You don't want to interact with the weak range. Okay, guys, any further questions? Otherwise, we're gonna finish here already almost 2 hours here. Heavy session, lots of stuff that we looked into. I assume no questions. Okay, guys, so let's keep crushing. Let's keep improving and crushing those other recs and recreationals. I wish you all a great weekend, and we see each other during the next week. Bye bye.